Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. My name is Sam Edison, speaking on behalf of the Pathfinders team from Oklahoma State University for the 2021 SAS Global Forum. The topic of this presentation is Investing in Education Intelligently, where we will dive into understanding the growing volume of student loan debt in the United States. Our mission is to provide analysis that will give awareness and guide future college students on their decision for selecting post-secondary education. Our analysis consists of a collaborative effort between each of the 4 team members, Akhil Imani, Natisha Kata, Rusha Putum, and myself, Sam Edison. In this presentation, we will discuss the data that we used for this analysis, why we are passionate about this subject, and the methodology we use to deliver our results. Student loans are designed to aid students in paying for post-secondary education, including the associated fees such as tuition, books and supplies, and living expenses. While they are essential for many to earn higher education and get a valuable job, student loans can be a lasting torment on its borrowers. Recently, Forbes reported that there are 45 million student loan borrowers, collectively owing nearly $1.6 trillion in debt. This is roughly $35,000 per borrower. Student loans are a critical resource used by many Americans to help pay for their goal of achieving higher education. As the tuition for post-secondary education continues to rise, the need for understanding student loans and the variables that impact individuals' abilities to pay them is vital. In a recent survey, Country Financial found that only 9% of parents talk to their children about managing student loan debt. Students may not have the financial foresight, education, or awareness of possible career pathways in order to project the outcome of the cost of student loans versus possible earnings after graduation. This study is designed to evaluate post-secondary institution costs and common outcomes to increase the knowledge of current and future students looking to achieve their educational goals. The data source we used in this is the College Scorecard, which is publicly available, created and maintained by the U.S. Department of Education. The College Scorecard is an online tool assisting students to evaluate higher education options. It's created by the United States government. The tool helps address the disconnect experienced by future students and the high costs of advanced education. Using the Statistical Analysis Software, or SAS, this study expands on data compiled in the scorecard to provide further insight into possible student outcomes based on institution-level data. The data source currently spans from 1996 to 2018 and is extended as new data becomes available. Each year consists of nearly 2,000 variables and 7,000 observations, where one observation pertains to an individual university or school. The data set has a number of variables about the institutions, such as location, degree types, programs offered, and student demographics. Admission rates, SAT and ACT scores of students, and completion rates are also provided. The costs of each institution, the financial aid amounts, and postgraduate earnings are the key metrics that will define our target variables for analysis. The focus for this analysis is the 2014 and 2015 school year, due to it having the most complete amount of observations for the target variables. With our core target variable being the debt to income ratio, which is the expected monthly payment of a given graduate divided by the expected monthly earnings. The debt to income, or DTI ratio, was engineered by using the median debt and earnings variables from the data source. We utilized an above average interest rate of 5% with 10-year term loans across all institutions to avoid assumptions that rates would be in favor of the students. A typical undergraduate borrower would be subject to a rate of 2.75%, according to studentaid.gov. A lower DTI is indicative of a more profitable return on investment for a student. A low DTI would mean that a graduate's earnings considerably outweighs their monthly loan payment. Our goal is to use the evaluation metric of DTI for schools in regions to identify the variables that most prominently impact that DTI. Our hope is that this will give future students a better idea of their educational investment and enable them to make the best decision for their unique situation. To further our understanding of the target variable DTI, we can utilize this bubble chart that represents a correlation between the median earnings, as we see along the x-axis, and the median debt along the y-axis. A secondary y-axis represents the DTI as a decimal scale. A student would want to select an institution on the bottom half of the chart. A student considering education from an optimal perspective will look at attending schools in the bottom right corner, or quadrant 4, such as Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine or Northeast Ohio Medical University. These represent some of the lowest debt and highest earnings institutions. Alternatively, the top left portion of the chart, or quadrant 2, represents the institutions with high debt and low earnings. For example, Allen University shows a DTI of around 0.3. A graduate incurring a DTI of 0.3 would essentially have a monthly payment that costs 30% of their monthly income. Another view for further perspective would be region-based. In the map chart, the median debt is displayed for the institutions across all regions within the United States. Overall, the West Coast, seen in green, reports the lowest debt across all regions, with the other 3 regions remaining at a comparable cost to one another. In comparison, the earnings map on the right shows the Northeast region, which we can see in purple, as the highest region for earnings. When these metrics are kept separate, as we see here, it is difficult to determine exactly which region would be ideal. However, if we utilize the DTI metric, which again is the expected monthly payment of a given graduate, divided by the expected monthly earnings, then we can more clearly see that the Northeast is the best area to pursue from a monetary perspective. Now that we have a solid understanding of the DTI metric, we can transition into the modeling approach. Our approach consisted of 5 main phases. First, we derived new variables from existing variables within the dataset, including the debt-to-income ratio discussed in previous slides. Second, due to the sheer amount of variables, we implemented data reduction techniques to pare down the complexity of the model. After reducing the dimensionality of the dataset, we considered various forms of data imputation and transformation to scale the variables appropriately. Lastly, we used multiple modeling techniques to determine the most important variables that explain the debt-to-income ratio. To prepare the data set for analysis, we had to first define what target variable would best suit the data at hand. The DTI metric was created by calculating a monthly payment using the given median debt and dividing it by the monthly earnings using the given median earnings. Driving the region variable was important as well, as individual state-based analysis would result in too many levels to effectively explain results. Thus, this region variable was created, which groups states into 4 regions: Northeast, Midwest, South, and West. In data reduction, it was found that some institutions could not be allocated to a geographical region. These were removed from analysis to continue with the scope of utilizing only United States institutions. Additionally, any variables with over 50% of missing values within the dataset were removed due to the results of these variables being insignificant. The remaining variables to this point were subject to imputations to fill incomplete data. For numerical variables, a median imputation was performed, meaning that all numerical observations with missing information would be replaced within a variable by the median. The median imputation was selected to account for outliers in variables such as family income and repayment rate. The data set also contained multiple binary variables, some of which required imputation. A mode imputation was used for these to replace missing values with the most common result for a given variable. Data transformation was also required to help scale the wide ranges of the variable's values. We applied various transformations such as logarithmic, square, power, square root, and exponential. As the dataset has 1,800 plus variables in total, there was an absolute need to perform some variable selection methods. Throughout data imputation itself, the number of variables were reduced by 50%, resulting in just over 1,000 variables. Additionally, certain variables pertaining to SAT scores and others resulted in high correlation, or multicollinearity. Multicollinearity is the occurrence of strong relationships between two or more variables in a predictive model. This can undermine the statistical significance of a variable. To avoid this potential issue, a clustering method was employed with a two-stage selection. Through this, variables with higher correlation to one another were grouped and partitioned based on the lowest 1 minus r squared ratio. The variable with the lowest ratio from each cluster was selected to move forward, resulting in 123 remaining variables. Lastly, the variable selection method within SAS Enterprise Miner was used to identify the variation explained by each predictor variable. The variable selection yielded 30 variables remaining for modeling. At this point, we were ready to begin the modeling phase. With the reduced dataset, 3 types of modeling techniques were performed. The criteria used to compare and understand model performance was the average square error. The average square error measures the average of the squared distance between the predicted values and the actual values of the debt-to-income target. The desire is to have a lower average square error. The first model attempted was regression. 3 regression models were attempted to identify which selection method was strongest: forward, stepwise, or backward. The results showed that stepwise regression model represented the lowest average square error. The next technique was a neural network, where a default setting, an expanded 5-neuron network, and a reduced hidden layer network were utilized. The network with 5 neurons was considered the strongest of the neural nets. Tree-based modeling was the final technique implemented on the scorecard data. A general decision tree was used, followed by a random forest, which is an ensemble of multiple decision trees. The random forest resulted in the best model with respect to average squared error. After evaluating the best performing models within each area, we compared them across each technique to uncover the champion model for the dataset. The random forest model represented the lowest overall average square error and thus was crowned our champion model. To interpret the results of the random forest, a surrogate modeling technique was used. It was found that multiple variables caused an increase in the debt-to-income target. Institutions where its students transferred and withdrew within 4 years showed the largest spike for DTI, while tuition and fees also contribute to a rise in DTI as the debt often rises with the tuition. Institutions with a high rate of new generation graduates, meaning that their parents did not attend a post-secondary educational institution, also had higher debt. Earning a bachelor's degree in communications technologies and support services was a prominent degree type showing a spike in DTI. While there are many instances of variables showing a rise in DTI, there are additionally multiple that indicated a lower DTI. The most important variable for lowering debt to income was based on students earning at least $28,000 in salary 6 years after beginning at a post-secondary institution. We also found that students coming from families with a higher family income were subject to lower DTIs. Students who stuck with their initial institution also see better results for maintaining a lower DTI. A select associate degree type in science and technologies gives aid in lowering DTI as well. Attending schools which had graduate programs also resulted in minimizing the debt to income for students. Throughout this analysis, we determined some insights that we believe can help future students in making a critical decision in selecting their post-secondary education. Firstly, joining an institution at a main campus and following through with completing that education at that same institution will often result in a lower DTI. Students considering institutions strictly from a monetary perspective may want to consider an institution within the Northeast, as it represents significantly lower DTIs across all regions. Alternatively, the cost-aware students may want to avoid the higher DTI regions of the Midwest and South. Students should understand and attempt to attend universities that have higher completion rates or lower dropout rates. And lastly, it was seen that institutions with a more robust platform, including additional degree types, such as masters or even PhDs, often had a lower debt to income to consider. There are some future studies that should be taken into consideration for further analysis. While the region-based views were substantial in determining lower DTIs, a deeper analysis into the individual states may further help future students. Additionally, the scorecard is expanded each year as more data becomes available. It would be beneficial to analyze the changes of the variables for institutions over the years. The analysis can also have a more focused scope on the low debt to income institutions to identify more key factors that are driving that low DTI. Alternatively, this could be done for the higher DTI institutions as well. Furthermore, the analysis is currently biased to only represent a monetary value of these institutions. Through this analysis, we do not consider the knowledge gained at certain institutions or their prestigious rankings. We also do not consider social aspects of the institution, which can play a role in student success as well. It is my hope that this information can be of benefit to future students seeking guidance in their educational endeavors to come. On behalf of our team, the Pathfinders, I want to thank you for your time and giving us this opportunity to share some of the growing concerns revolving around student loan debt in the United States.